Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we go.
That's what we talk about.
That's exactly right. That's what we're talking about. How's everyone doing? Great. What an incredible morning session. I mean, to hear from just some true icons this morning and be poured into has really been momentous for myself. My name is Rashad Burgess. I'm Vice President of Advancing Health and Black Equity at Gilead Sciences, and it is truly my pleasure and my honor to be with you all here at Black Enterprises Black Men's Excel Summit. With this crowd, I see so many amazing Black leaders, and it's so great that we are here in this room to have a conversation about how health is wealth. And so I want to thank you for your commitment and all that you're doing in our communities all across the world. For those of you who do not know, Gilead Sciences is a California-based biotech pharmaceutical company who our mission is to fight some of the world's most devastating diseases and make the world a healthier place for everyone. In my role, I am given the honor to actually lead our efforts in fighting systemic health inequities and fight racial inequalities, and really help address how we can ensure that Black and brown communities all across the world have access to care. And since being in this position, one thing that I have been consistently reminded of is how crucial it is to improve the health outcomes for Black Americans and especially Black men. The improvement of our community's health will ensure that we can thrive physically and thrive economically for generations to come. It's important to understand that poor health outcomes for Black men have been hiding in our plain sight for decades. Did you know that 60% of Black men are diagnosed with hypertension? Just reflect on that. 60% of us are diagnosed with hypertension. Did you know that 1 in 20 Black men will be diagnosed with HIV in their lifetime? Did you all just pause on that? 1 in 20. Do you also know that Black men have the lowest life expectancy of all men? My brothers and my sisters, we have work to do. We really do, because we have to reverse these trends. Health disparities are often a downstream consequence of deeper societal problems. And we've talked about many of those societal problems since we've been here. That's why a large part of our work at Gilead revolves around addressing the social determinants of health, from poverty and discrimination to stigma. We champion programs like the Racial Equity Community Impact Fund, a $10 million commitment towards combating social inequities directly targeting Black health and Black wellness, and the Creating Possible Fund through our Gilead Foundation, a $30 million commitment towards building a pipeline of Black health leaders through advancing education equity. That's why Gilead puts equity at the center of our advocacy efforts by addressing the social determinants of health, removing societal barriers to care and expanding access. We can ultimately make the world a healthier and a wealthier place for all. And we have a lot of work that's still left to be done. And I look forward to hearing from our panelists today about where we can take it from here, because we are needed now. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Alfred Edmond, who will be moderating our session, Health is Wealth.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great way to set the table. Really deeply appreciate it. And we are very grateful to Gilead for being one of our partners on this session and a partner of Black Enterprise. We did something with them at the Women of Power Summit this past March. And we're looking forward to doing future things around this idea of health, wealth. And so to set this up, first of all, you're going to find out we got the perfect two people to have this conversation, but I want to lay some ground rules about how we're going to approach it. So much about the conversation about health and wellness when it talks about the black community, and particularly the black men, revolves around what's going to happen if we don't do the right thing. You know, how soon we going to die, how fast we going to get sick. And that's a conversation that most of us don't want to have. In fact, I know for a fact there are probably people who should be in this room but said, you know what, I'm having a good time. I'm not trying to have that conversation. But my attitude as someone who's a health and wellness enthusiast is that we get a lot further when we talk about what we gain when we lean into lifestyle changes around health and wellness. And so we already have decided amongst ourselves, we're going to be focusing more what we have to gain. And with regard to that, I want to just give you some few notes and statistics in contrast to the accurate statistics that were already shared. This goes to our ambitions, what we want to happen in our lives, for our families, for our career goals or business goals. First of all, the average age of an S&P 500 CEO is 57. So if your aspirations as CEO, you got to be a pretty robust, healthy 40-something, 50-something person. The average age of a Fortune 500 CEO is 58. But more tellingly, and you're going to hear some other numbers, including a number that Gene Axios at ARP just shared from one of the previous sessions about how much money we leave on the table when we pass away earlier than is necessary. A new study just came out, and I didn't even know about it. I interviewed George Fraser, who, by the way, is a robust 77, about what are the most productive decades of a person's life. And you know, you're thinking you're going to hit maybe 40, you know, because we've been taught, you kind of get to your 40s and then it's downhill. Mm-hmm. No, the most productive decades of life are in order: age 60 to 70, 50 to 60, and 70 to 80. Gentlemen, here's our challenge. Either we're not getting there, or when we get there, we're just not in the most, in our optimal condition to actually pursue all the opportunities that lay before us. Think about it. We spend our 20s making some mistakes, mm-hmm. our 30s kind of recovering from and learning from them, at 40 approaching mastery, and then we get to that 50 to 60 range where we should be balling out, really balling out, not like balling out like we thought we were doing in our 20s and 30s, but really balling out, really maximizing everything that we've accumulated along the way. And then we run into challenges in larger numbers than we need to. So we don't want to talk about it from like, oh, if you don't do this, you're going to get sick. If you're going to, we want to talk about, hey, what's at stake? And my thing is, we can't say Black life matters if we're not saying Black longevity matters. So we're talking about our longevity, not just how healthy and good we feel in the current moment or for the time being, but what we need to be thinking about, what we need to be committing to for ourselves and for our brothers who are not in this room, for whatever reason, because we got to take this out and say, what can we do to extend Black life? My personal goal that I pray for every day is to make it to like 102 and then kind of slide into the grave by 104. You know, that's really about every day. And I say, when I make decisions about what I do on a day-to-day basis, I say, what's going to increase the odds of me getting to 102 and sliding into the grave with 104? Because we don't want to limp and hobble to whatever it is. We want to get there, but really be living life well. These two brothers, these two gentlemen, are perfect people to have this conversation. I'm going to introduce you to them, and each of them will tell a little bit more about their story. And let me say this, as I introduce Michael Currie, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Health Equity Officer at United Health Group. And just having a brother in a position about equity and health at a company like United Health Group is meaningful. We need that, avail ourselves. Having brothers in healthcare companies in that space is a critical resource for us. And Michael, again, Senior Vice President, Chief Health Equity Officer for United Health Group, is a national, I would say global, national expert on health trends and the statistical determinants of health has already been referenced. He will give you the actual statistic, but let me take what burden off of you. Where we are is not our fault. It ain't your grandmama's fault because she cooked, fried chicken at the picnic. We have to let go of this idea that there's something culturally wrong with us, our diets and our traditions, that somehow is less healthy than the cultures of other communities in the country or in the world. And he'll be able to go more deeply into the social determinants of health. Our other panelist is a longtime friend, mentor, He's actually my bodybuilding mentoring coach. Those of you who know me well know I'm a natural bodybuilding competitor. And this is Yohnnie Shambourger, a former Mr. Universe, natural, coach, trainer. He's the founder and CEO of Yhonnex Sports. So I want to give each of you guys a chance to kind of set your own tone for what we'll be discussing today, starting with Michael.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Is it morning or afternoon? I don't even know what time it is. So it's afternoon now, my man. Good afternoon. So we had said when we were doing the prep for this that we want to make this a conversation. So I'm not going to sit here and spout out a bunch of statistics and numbers to you. We're going to have a conversation about what you need to know, what you need to teach, and what you need to do. So let's first start about this notion of health equity, social determinants of health, health inequities, and health disparities. I want to start there. So what I want you to understand is health equity is the top of the mountain. It's the top of the pyramid. That's where we all want to get to. We want to achieve a state of health equity. Will some of us see it in our lifetime? Will many of us in this room see it in our lifetime? I don't know. But that's the ultimate goal. What impacts yours and all of our ability to achieve health equity are the health inequities that exist. Health inequities look like social determinants of health. Poor transportation, poor access to care, food deserts, pharmacy deserts, the list goes on and on. Those health inequities or social determinants of health manifest themselves into health disparities. Health disparities are the numbers, the percentages, the prevalence of this, the incidence of that. So when you see these things, I want you to be able to put them in the right context, in the right order. You see talk about health disparities. Your first thought should be, well, what health inequities or social or individual determinants of health are associated with those health disparities? And then if we address those health inequities, how will that advance this notion of health equity? So that's the first thing I want you to know so you can teach and preach and then do something about it. So the second thing is when we talk about health is wealth. So brothers, my friends, if I have some fraternity brothers in the room, my fraternity brothers, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, to the day I die, I see you. There is physical health that we know about, but I don't want you to forget two other aspects of health that are critically important to you achieving your optimal health and achieving the kind of quality of life, longevity and quality of life that we all want to achieve. There's your physical health, there's your mental health, and there is your dental health. Don't leave them out. They run in a pack. Poor dental health through one's lifetime impacts your overall health status. There isn't a direct line on life expectancy as of yet, but it does impact health status. Pay attention to your dental health, your mental health, and your physical health. And the last thing I'll say, I just mentioned, and that is, before I turn it over to my good friend Yohnnie here, is quality of life. Yes, you want to live long. Absolutely, you want to live long, but you want to enjoy your life expectancy. You want to be able to participate in your longevity in some of the most meaningful ways possible. So quality of life, because I want Alfred, while he says he's going to live to 102, I want him to be moving and agile all the way up to and through 102, and that relates to quality of life. So a few nuggets for you to chew on as we continue this conversation this afternoon.
Okay, well, the table has been set, but that menu is the real deal.
Yeah, that was a little fried chicken.
I hear it, I hear it. Okay, Yohnnie, what you going to add to the conversation?
Okay, basically, when I talk to a lot of people, when I talk to a lot of men, the first thing I ask them is, what's your biggest investment? Now here this weekend, we've been hearing a whole lot about investment, about growing your wealth, okay? And I will hear things like, well, it's my house. If you live in the DC area, your house is $500,000 on up. Somebody else will say, a younger person will say, it's my car, my ride. You know, I got a brand new car. And another person will say, my business. You're successful. Your business is worth millions. But that's wrong. The answer is your biggest investment is your personal health. And we don't see it that way because we got it for free. You didn't buy your health, you got it for free. You was born with this. You see it every day. And we tend to take advantage of that. So I try to tell people there's 3 things you need to understand with your personal health, because your personal health is the only investment that will guarantee you a 100% return. Think about that. Guarantee you a 100% return if you do these 3 things. First, you have to acknowledge that it is an investment. Second, you have to love it, just like you love that house or you love that car. And the final thing, 3, protect it. If you don't do those 3 things, it will not reward you. Now, we are amazed when we see LeBron James play basketball. We say this guy, on the 18th of this month, he will be starting his 20th season in the NBA. And he still can jump as high, run as far, and demand whatever wealth he wants. He's the only athlete that's a billionaire and still playing. But on the flip side, he spends roughly $1.5 million annually on his body, on training, recovery, and diet. A lot of times we make a lot of money, but we invest pennies into the real investment. The real investment is yourself. I'm 69 years old, and when I see people my age, they don't look or move like me. Thank you. So we're going to share some more about that.
You know, I knew I had the right brothers to this session because we're laughing. When this is not like, oh God, I'm going to the doctor, he's going to tell me some bad news again. This is the joy we got to bring to this conversation. This idea that, no, this is not a conversation to avoid. This is a conversation to have not just in the audience on a panel and we'll have Q&A, but we need to have these conversations among ourselves. We need to reinforce this idea that this is a good thing to do. That we have wonderful outcomes that we can get. We can have, as opposed to, why are you eating that? Or why you eat, you know what I'm saying? The kind of shame and judgment that we often approach one another with and others approach us with. So we want to change that narrative. That's the beginning of it. We got a good look from both of these gentlemen about what's in it for us. And I was always like, you got to say what's in it for you before you're going to be motivated to make those changes. So just very, very powerful start to this conversation. I want to talk about, and you, Michael, because again, the whole idea of connecting health with equity. Talk more about what's at stake for us, not just as Black men, but as a Black community, what we have to gain if we can just start addressing even some of the changes that we can make that has a ripple effect beyond, you know, how we feel and what we look like when we look in the mirror, but more what it means for our capacity as leaders, producers, men of excellence in our communities, what it means for future generations. Because as you said, that top of the mountain, let's be real, we're probably not going to get there in our lifetimes. The gaps we're trying to close took centuries to create, and hopefully it won't take more centuries to close, but it's not going to get closed in the next 20 years. But we got to get started. So talk to me about what you see as an expert in this space.
Yeah, that goes right into cultural norms. So let me set the stage for cultural norms by using myself as an example. I think examples make things clear. So everyone wants to know what the WIFM is, what's in it for me. Now, I'm born and raised in inner city DC by a single mother. Played sports and was able to leverage that sport to go to college. And the point I want to make, I'll leave out all the details where I went to school, what sport I played, all that. We could talk in the hallway if anyone wants that information. What I really want to focus on is the fact that your life experiences really create and shape how you think, how you do, and what you promote and encourage. So growing up the way I grew up and being exposed to the things I was exposed to, utilization of healthcare wasn't something we talked about in my house. You went to the doctor or you went to the hospital when you really felt bad, or you needed a sports physical, or you were sick enough that you felt you had to go. Preventive medicine and routine maintenance of care wasn't something that was taught in my house. I would imagine in a number of houses for you all sitting in this audience, because it seems to be a cultural thing. So the importance that you all have is being able to change that cultural norm. You have an opportunity, and I'm going to say every single one of you all sitting in this room and those not sitting in this room, if you're at this conference and you have any sort of social consciousness about you at all, you have an obligation to pass along and foster and facilitate and encourage a new cultural norm. And that new cultural norm is one that is associated with proper and appropriate utilization or use of health care. What health insurance provider you choose, how you choose your doctor or doctors, how often you go see them, that's learned behavior. And it's learned behavior that Mike Currie picked up in his adult years. You know, I'm the chief health equity officer, so I got degrees and I'm trained to do this public health kind of work. But what I really want you to take away from my life experiences is this is passion work for me as well. I know what disparities walk like, talk like, look like, smell like. So this is passion work for me as well. So I encourage you, I implore you, in some ways I beg of you, I obligate you to go out and learn what is appropriate selection of health insurance providers and how to use your health care in the best way. And I understand that's your WIFM, because that's about you. But teach somebody else, show somebody else, so that you can help others learn, which then begins to change the trajectory of what this inappropriate or lack of proper utilization looks like. The last thing I mentioned as it relates to this, and I want to hear Yohnnie's comment. Very close friend of mine here in the DC area. He's a little bit older than me. He's a little closer to 60. And to this day, we still talk about what health insurance he selects, how much it's supposed to cost, going to get his flu shot and routine maintenance, because we came up right down the street from one another. That's not behavior that we knew. So I appreciate the fact that he trusts me to talk to him about it so that he can learn better and do better. And then guess what he does with that? He talks to his kids about it. And then that will change what the cultural norm of appropriate healthcare utilization looks like over time, which will begin to address one of the ways of addressing health disparities over time. Addressing health inequities and social determinants of health, that's a different strategy, but controlling what you can control, which is what you know and what you do, is critically important.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I also want to address, and Michael and Yohnnie, I want you to jump in on this. We have this thing, the whole black don't crack thing. We focus a lot on the fact that many black people, or there's a cultural expectation that we generally don't look as old as we may be.
Well, Yohnnie's making me feel bad.
But I'm going somewhere with this because I just recently interviewed Malik Yoba. I have a series for Black Enterprise called Beyond the Hype. And one of the most interesting things is coming out of the pandemic when you talk to people that you hadn't talked to in 2 years, because depending on what was going on, you might have had a conversation. But he told me he had quadruple bypass surgery. Quadruple since like last year. But he looks good. He's a, you know, and sometimes I think we as black people and as black men, we get a false sense of security because we look fine. You know, as you said, and I'm like you. I was raised by a divorced single mother, working poor household and working class community. Just what you said. I went to get a physical if I wanted to play a sport, or if something was going wrong, and as a young person, not much was going wrong. And so I tell people the term casket sharp means something different when you look good in your casket, but you're only 50. You know, but you sure look good. You look like you get up out of the casket right now. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, my thing is, I'm gonna say, I want, and Yhonnie, I want you to kind of jump in on this. I want us to start thinking about more, to Michael's point about screenings and testing, so you're not finding out that you got blockages, because blockages don't show up in wrinkles on your face. They don't show up in, you know, your body. It's happening on the inside. And I always tell people, our black don't crack, but we corrode from the inside out, you know. And so I want you to talk more about, it's more about what, you know, monitoring your health by getting tests and screenings and getting the engine checked. Like, we would never go by what the car looked like to buy a car, you know, but we know lemons look great. But we also want to talk about how we feel. And unfortunately, well, I'm going to say unfortunately, the reality is, as men and as black men, we've been taught to play with the pain, walk it off, and we often are almost disconnected to how we feel and having what I think women do when they don't feel good, they go to the doctor, they get checked out. Talk to me about approaching this from the inside out, as opposed to I look fine, I'm walking fine, I look good in the mirror, so I must be okay.
Well, black don't crack, but it will die early. So what you have to understand is that you can determine, there's studies out here that can determine your life expectancy by your zip code. That will determine the type of services that are in your community, the type of supermarkets that are in your community, the type of health services that are in your community, the type of advocates that are around you suggesting that you need to do this, you need to take care of that. You know, the same thing that you said. You know, we should also do a tune-up every year. Every year, we need to go to a doctor and go and do a physical. Every year. So the thing is that we need to understand, and what I try to tell people is that we are already, we're taught to say it's our genes. If somebody in your family have high blood pressure, or somebody in your family dies early, you say, it's my genes, I can't do anything about it. But yes, you can. It's not your genes. It's the bad eating habits that you learned at an early age. You look at your plate of food. How many colors are there? If it's just brown and green, that's not enough. It should be orange, red, a bunch of different colors in there, because that will determine, that's where what we call, we always know what the macros are. You know, what's my protein? What's my carbs? What's my fat? Nobody ever talk about what is called the micros. That's your fruits, vegetables, berries, stuff like that. That's the nutrients that are giving you the vitamins to help with the cells. I tell people that in 1 year, 395 days, in 1 year, 395 days, 95% of your cells are going to die and be regenerated. If you take your liver and they take a chunk of your liver out, it will regenerate itself. It will build back. And all of this is because of the food that you're putting into your body. So you are what you eat. So if you don't eat enough variety of colors, then the cells that you're growing are inefficient. They're weak. They're not strong. And it will show up on your skin. It will show up in how you feel. It will show up. So you have to pay more attention to your daily diet. And the insurance companies already know that because they write your policy on your zip code. They write your policy. They came up with that BMI. BMI, they always, what's your BMI? Well, basically what they're doing is saying that if you have a BMI of this or that, your insurance policy is going to be higher. The insurance company came up with that. And basically, when I was 29, 30, I may only knew one person that was 300 pounds. Now, I got a bunch of friends that's 300 pounds. And everybody in this room knows somebody that's 300 pounds. But when you were a kid, you didn't see that a lot. It's how we eat our foods, the hormones that's in the animals, the fact that we love to eat late at night. All those habits are changing, and it's turning that black don't crack to black dies early.
I want, Michael, please jump in.
I don't want anyone to walk out and feel like I got it. It's relatively, I know what I'm supposed to do. This is going to be easy. I want you to understand that even those that are trained in this have work to do. And again, I said examples make things clear, and this is 20 seconds. So a personal experience. So I go to the doctor about 2-3 years ago, routine physical. Hey, Mr. Currie, you know, your blood pressure is starting to creep up a little bit. What's the first thing I say? I got it. No problem, no problem. I know what to do. I've been an athlete all my, well, I'm old now, but so I've been an athlete all my life, so I know what to do. Go back to next year. Blood pressure's creeping up a little bit more. It's not flying out, but it's still creeping up. What did I say?
I got it.
I got it. I got it. I know what I said. I'll turn my workout routine up a little bit more. I'll eat a little better. I got it. I go back March of this year. What did they say to me? Blood pressure's really starting to creep. You really need to start thinking about taking something for your blood pressure before it's actually high, because you're right at the highest end of blood pressure, or of it not being blood pressure, pre-risk, high blood pressure. Here's how they got me. So because I'm sitting there going, okay, I'll turn up a little bit more. I know what to do. The nurse practitioner looked at me and she said, so Mr. Currie, I'm looking at your history here and I see there's history of stroke in your family. Yes, ma'am. How was your mother when she had her first stroke? In her late 50s. I'm 55. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go on and take that prescription and let me start adjusting some things. So I don't wanna suggest that we're gonna say what we're gonna say and you're gonna walk out and you're gonna make it do what it do. This takes work. So you have to work at it so that you can get better for yourself and that you can teach others and satisfy that obligation we talked about. I just wanted to throw that in.
No, it's important. It's important. And I want to also talk about, let me tell you my own personal motivation about this idea of how long I wanted to live. My wake-up call after not seeing a doctor like in adulthood, my first 10 years of adulthood, actually more than that. I was in my early 30s before I had a regular physician. It was the birth of my son. And, you know, looking at him and saying, will I be able to play basketball with this kid when he's 15? You know, or I'll be sitting on the porch watching him play basketball. And I made a decision I want to be able to play basketball. And like you said, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't like, oh yes, I know what to do. No, it was a little step, a little change each and every day. So I want you to think about the benefits of longevity. You talk about just being able to be mobile, you know, to be able to move, to be able to walk, to be able to run a little bit at a certain age. It's about quality of life and the kind of quality of life you want to have. The other thing I want you to address, oh, by the way, this coming November will be my 12th year past prostate surgery. I had prostate cancer, lived with it for a year. Never got sick, because they caught it early. I had to recover from the actual surgery, but I never got sick. But my point is, I didn't find out until after my experience that both my grandfather and my father had prostate cancer. So often we're walking around without the family history. We don't know that our mother and our grandmother had hypertension. So my thing is, goes back to what Michael said earlier. This is not just a conversation for you. This is a conversation for your sons and daughters. Learn as much as you can about your family history and get them ready for a new cultural set of changes that may be different from the ones that we inherited or we were taught. Not because, something's wrong with what your mama taught you, what your grandmama taught you. It's just the culture that you were raised in, but we can turn the tide in terms of what we do to transform that conversation with others. Yohnnie, you're known for coaching a literally Guinness Book of World Record person, which is kind of a big calling card for this idea of what you can do in your latter years to be really vibrant. Talk about that person and what you've learned for that all of us can use about living longer, higher quality of lives.
Okay, I lived many lives. Some people would know me from when I was a swim coach at Howard. Some people would know me from my bodybuilding career. And some people would know me from my client, Miss Ernestine Shepard from Baltimore, that's now 86 years old. But I turned her into a bodybuilder at 71. She came to me at 71, and she said, I want to be a bodybuilder. And she was a attractive-looking older woman, and I told her, I said, I see you at these events. I thought you were a bodybuilder when you were younger. She said, no, baby. If I take these clothes off, they just turn all the lights off in this room. And I chuckled, and I said, yeah. I said, I can turn you into a bodybuilder, but it's going to be a journey. You have to follow everything I tell you to do. So she did. We started working together. I was training her online because she lived in Baltimore. And then eventually she was sending me pictures and she was making a progress. So I told her to come into my facility, and I trained her twice a week and gave her a plan to follow. She had discipline. She followed the program. In 7 months, I transformed her body, put her in the first bodybuilding show. She won. She did the senior category and she won. So what did I do? I started putting it out on social media about this is my client, this is how she did. She turned into a viral sensation. As she grew as a bodybuilder from the age of 71, she competed from 71 to 76. All sorts of things started happening for her. Guinness Book of World Record contacted us and said, we think she may hold the record for the oldest female bodybuilder. So it took about 8 months for them to verify it, but they said she is. And then they flew us out to Rome to present her with an award. From there, she was on Ripley's Believe It or Not as Grandma Six-Pack. She's been on Oprah. Yeah, because she has a six-pack. She's been on Oprah. She's been on all the major, Steve Harvey, all the major talk shows. And we travel around the world doing workshops and encouraging other people to stay in shape. At 86, she makes more money now than she did when she was still in the work world, before the age of 50, when she was working as a secretary. She's making more money. She has having more fun, just going around the world, just meeting people, being a celebrity.
And I don't think I've ever seen her wear an outfit where her midriff wasn't showing.
I know, she always. There's sometimes it was funny. We went to this black tie dinner, and her and I was going to sit at the table of all these other folks, men with their wives. And she came down in the lobby with this outfit with her stomach out, part of her back out, and I had to send her back upstairs. Can't wear that at this thing because these older men gonna be sitting there with their wives complimenting you all night, and they gonna have a problem when they go back to the room. She didn't like that, but she did it. She understood.
Michael, we have an audience of leaders and influencers. I want to kind of shift the conversation away from a conversation that's got to continue what we do in our own lives, what we eat, what we do on a day-to-day basis. But I want to shift it to other conversations, to the other thing that I think we have an opportunity to do to affect the larger issue around social determinants of health. We know that United Health Group is committed to this agenda. We know that Gilead is committed to this agenda. But we have an audience of leaders, influencers, and companies and communities. What should we be doing as leaders to influence government policies, programs that could be happening in our companies' activities in communities? Because just as every company is a tech company, whether you're a quote-unquote technology company or not, every corporation has a potential for impact on healthcare outcomes in the communities that we are located in, that our customers live and work in. Talk more about what we could be saying, say to our company and our employers or organizations in our community to say, listen, this is something that we can do to help turn the tide of outcomes in our communities for Black men and others.
Sure. 3 things to focus on. To take back to your company if you own the company, or your employer group if you're working for a company. First and foremost is access to care. What does your company do to provide the best possible access to care and promote and encourage proper utilization of that access to care? Hopefully you have United Healthcare Insurance as part of your company, but if it's somebody else, that's fine. Focus on access and affordable access to care. Number 2 is the workforce development. And when I'm talking about workforce development, I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's taking place within the company to promote a diversity of thought and a diversity of solutioning that goes on when you bring diverse individuals in, so that the things you talk about, the solutions associated with access to care, and who you choose as your health insurance carriers, all of that gets taken into account. You want that diversity of thought at the table. And number 3, especially for those organizations that aren't health focused, because there's a natural orientation for, we'll just pick on a bank, to assume what we don't do healthcare, it's not our thing. We'll leave that up to the health associated or affiliated organizations. There is an opportunity for every organization, from a philanthropic or social responsibility perspective, to lean in and support those community-based or non-community-based organizations that do have a health focus. So focus on an access to care and proper utilization of that access to affordable care. Ensure that there is diversity of thought throughout the organization, so that you're doing things in the community. When we talk about social responsibility and access, the solutioning that goes on brings light and brings things that otherwise wouldn't be part of the conversation as part of the conversation, and then your philanthropic and social responsibility. Those 3, you hit those 3, and you lean in on those 3, you'll be helping to advance the whole notion of health equity.
There's something, well, first of all, we're going to start taking questions, so if you're going to line up at the mic, please do that. You've been at this session. This is the second day of full sessions at Black Men Excel, so you should already know the ground rules. We mean question, not statement, not speech, not what had happened was, question. If somebody's behind you, 1 question, not I got 2, 3 questions, 1 question, so that everybody who's online who has a question can get that question asked. And I got a new one I'm going to add. Try to ask a question that's going to benefit everyone in the room, as opposed to just you. Meaning, I'm just going to say it. You get on the mic and you say, listen, is there a way that I can meet with you you can invest in my program? That's not an everybody in the room question for Q&A. That's a question where you can meet Michael or Yohnnie out, after the session to have a one-on-one conversation. So try to be mindful that we're all trying to feed one another. This is a community effort. Yes, we each have our own agenda and reasons for being here, but let's make this a productive Q&A. But before I ask the first question, Yohnnie, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to add something to that part about with companies. A lot of times when I work with companies and organizations, what I try to get them to understand, because we all know that we can be replaced. No matter how good a job you're doing, you can't be replaced. So they don't want to hear the speech about, oh, I'm going to lose body weight and autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. They don't want to hear about that. But what I hit them with is that you have to understand, just like I told you guys earlier about how your body's regenerating itself, there's a portion of your brain in the lower middle section of your brain called the hippocampus. All right, that's responsible for emotion, but it's also responsible for learning and memory. Okay. Now, if you don't work out, or if you don't work out aggressively enough, when you work out hard or aggressive, what you do is increase the blood flow throughout the entire body, and you're sending fresh nutrients, oxygen and nutrients to that part of your brain, which will increase your performance at work, which will increase your memory. So you don't, man, I can't remember what that thing is. And a lot of times they don't want to hire older people because they think they can't remember nothing or they can't learn the new technology.
Right.
You can learn the new technology because your lights are on. Every light in the house is on. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. Don't just think that I'm going to train just for the sexy look. Okay? There's a whole lot more to that.
Yes.
We get that portion of the brain where we got to turn on all the lights. And as black men, our lights got to be brighter.
Right. You know, that's very important because often we overlook the connection between physical fitness and feeling good, emotional, we can get a whole nother conversation about our emotional fitness, and cognitive health, because that's the other thing. Alzheimer's is a disease that's skyrocketing, not because somehow there's a plague that's emerging.
Right.
We are living longer.
Right.
And because we are living longer as a society, we're encountering physiological changes in our bodies that you didn't live long enough to get Alzheimer's once upon a time if you're dying, at 50, 60 years old. So it all connects together. We're not just talking about looking good or, having a six-pack, because you can be, again, you and I are in the body on space. There are plenty of people with six-packs who are very unhealthy. Mm-hmm. Don't confuse fitness and health. They're not the same thing. They often go together, but they're not the same thing. We're talking about health. That's what I'm saying. Don't get so caught up in what you look like. Somebody has a six-pack can have a heart attack tomorrow, and somebody that supposedly has a dad bod can live until they're 95. We want to talk about those internal things, cognitive health, and those other things. Before the first question, I got to get this one more question in for us as black men, particularly in corporate America. And Mike, I really want you to address this. Talk about the importance of creating safe spaces for black men who are often in organizations where, it's not, whether there's microaggression, whether the ongoing wear and tear on you health-wise, psychologically, emotionally, because you need safe spaces to function. Talk about that in terms of corporate culture and what many of the men in this room have to intentionally manage in order to have better health outcomes.
That's where affinity groups and resource groups really come into play. They can be as large or as small as the organization is or how many people are interested in them. But if they're done properly, if they're supported properly, if they're staffed and set up properly, they become safe places within an organization for very candid and authentic conversation to take place. Now, as fast as I say that, I also understand and fully appreciate that there are just some things you're not going to bring to a conversation at work. And that's why I would encourage you, whatever your safe haven is outside of work, your fraternity, your church, your group of friends, your significant, whatever your safe space is, to have candid, open, and authentic conversation, leverage it. But in the workplace, I would encourage affinity groups or resource groups. At United, we have someone here, Kevin, who does a lot with our affinity groups and supports them. And there are, Kevin, what is it, 10, 12 of them now? Is African American, Hispanic, LGBTQ, Asian American, military, just so, because you're looking for the group that has that commonality so that the things you talk about are in common, that creates an environment of safety to foster conversation. That's what it's all about.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we have our first question.
Afternoon. My name is Jerry Kays. I literally just texted my mother a watermelon I have grown in the backyard, and that's a big deal because I chose to want to garden and create community engagement with my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods around agriculture and food. Is the healthcare system creating roadmaps for families to understand the power of agriculture and how we can create foods that we can consume that give us a more comprehensive, holistic lifestyle? Because there's a huge difference between eating something in the backyard versus going to Whole Foods.
Yep. Absolutely. So when you look at, especially what I'll point you to is national reputable sites like a CDC or an NIH, but in a simple Google search will bring forward national reputable organizations that talk about gardening and the benefits of gardening and eating healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, and other healthy foods in the right amount, because too much of anything is bad, so in the right amount. So I would encourage you just to do some simple Google searching. You will find some very reputable sources that maybe it's not the roadmap, but it will be some guidelines, some things for you to think about as you do your own personal gardening or try to do some community-based gardening.
Yeah, I know I've seen a lot more, about ways you can do, gardening in apartments.
Yep.
There's more tools and resources out there to grow stuff for yourself or in buildings where it used to be, if you didn't live in a rural area, it was kind of hard to do that. So absolutely there are resources out there.
Yeah, and you can also start that at your church or any organization that you belong to. When I jog over here, going across the bridge, on one side is PG County, on the other side is Virginia. On PG County, you see restaurants and stuff. When you cross over the other side of the bridge, you start seeing gardens, group garden, family garden, community gardens. You see these little sections that they pay for to grow their own fruits and vegetables. So it has to start with the thought that you have in your head. Start it with your group. If you don't know of any, be the one that started.
Excellent. Next question.
Yes, Jerron Tyler. I want to thank you for the three aspects of health, the physical health, the mental health, and the dental. I've never really considered the alignment between the three. But I wanted to ask, when we consider like gut health, what are like the foods that come to mind that will be conducive to a successful journey on a successful health journey, if you will? I heard you mention like your plate should have a lot of color, but are there like specific foods that just automatically come to your mind when you think of gut health?
Well, I don't look at it that way because everybody, your physical body is different. Nobody's digestive system is the same. So everybody's different. So I wouldn't say that only eat this particular thing. But what I always tell people is that you have to eat a variety of color. If you eat a variety of color, then you give in your body, your body is perfectly designed. It will take care of itself even when you don't take care of it. All right, if you fall down and break your arm, it will heal itself. It might be crooked, but it will heal itself. Okay? So if you give your body the proper nutrition, then it's going to generate the cells that's going to take care of everything that's being regenerated in your body. While your body is building itself, it's doing it off the nutrition that you take in. So that's my advice to folks, because I can say a different product or item, and 6 months from now you may forget that particular item, or somebody else could tell you something different. But if you think of more color, you got it.
Michael said earlier, this is something that's going to take effort and intentionality and work. And I want to put this in the context of either elevating some food as a superfood, which is a big part of it's all marketing, by the way. It's not health related. It's not health driven. It's marketing. So when somebody says, "Oh, you need to eat this. This is what you need to eat," or "that you need to stay away from," I always tell people, don't think of it as good or bad foods. Think of it as two things. One, learning the properties and the nutrients of everything you eat and drink, right? Not good or bad, just what is it? What is it? What are you actually putting in your body? And then what proportion you should have of it. Let's assume that all food is edible to some degree or another without killing you, but some foods are better than others. My thing is chocolate. I can't say no to chocolate. I won't say no to chocolate. Forget about can't. But I understand I can't eat chocolate like I would eat chicken or like I would eat broccoli. Like I might have a piece every day because I like the taste. It's about proportion. It's about, So people will get, say, well, I like this thing, and you're telling me I can never have it again. And I always say it's better to say, no, let's talk about what's the proportion you should have it. But more importantly, most of us eat stuff we don't know. We don't even look at the nutrition label. We have no idea what we're eating. And if you educate yourself more about what you're eating, which takes work, takes intentionality, you will make your own choices. In other words, I always tell my people, eat what you want, but know what you're eating. Because if you knew what you're eating, you'd make decisions about what you're eating. And then And you don't have to say, well, I can't have that. You can say, yeah, I can have that. I don't want that right now. The more we can make it about what we really want to do and less about what people are telling us to do, the more likely we'll stick to a program and a journey of health, which is going to go for the rest of your life. There's nothing you're going to learn here or in any book or any seminar that's going to say, oh, I'm done. I know everything I need to know. I'm good. This is a journey that will be taken forever, for as long as we're alive. Yes. Sean, one of our speakers. Great.
Hi, I'm Sean Taylor, a workplace financial consultant with Fidelity Investments. And this is a question for you, Mr. Currie, and I hope this is on topic. You know, you talked about the employee benefits and really understanding how to navigate the benefits, and in particular, the health savings account, you know, versus your traditional copay model. You know, working in this particular space, there's a lot of disconnection between what's the advantage of having an HSA over the long term as we age, right? The increased cost of healthcare and that traditional copay model. Can you speak to the HSA and things that you feel are important about us understanding how to leverage that particular instrument to make sure that we're accessing the most professional healthcare as we age and we control those dollars?
No, Sean, that's a good question. The HSAs become yet another vehicle, not only to help pay for health care, but also do some saving as well. And depending on how you do your saving, if you want to heavily do 401k or stock or whatever your thing is to do saving, or create savings for retirement or whatever else you want to use your savings for, HSAs become a vehicle. And you get to decide as the individual if you want to use an HSA. The only way you can decide if you want to leverage an HSA is if you learn how to use your benefits and your healthcare because in order to decide I need an HSA, you have to know how much you spend in healthcare or should be spending in your healthcare throughout the year. And then you back into what and how much would I put into HSA? Do I have another means to, you see where I'm going with that? So they are tied together, and HSAs, using HSAs are an avenue, a resource, a good resource, tax beneficial resource to pay for healthcare and healthcare utilization.
Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure.
I have time for, okay, if you're fast, I can get all three of you in, but I can't promise the last dude. So let's keep the questions quick, and we'll get our answers as quickly as possible. We only have 5 more minutes for this session.
Definitely makes military, so I'll make it fast for you. Anthony Fears, CEO of Fearless Investments. Very unique situation. I want to get your take on this in terms of us being our own advocate towards our health. I have a unique situation where I had great health care, plus being a veteran, also had the VA. The question is, it took the VA to realize that I had 85% blockage of my heart. And that was them saying, hey, you know what, you've been a veteran, we're gonna do an extra test. Now, prior to that, my regular health care went through the testing, everything was okay, Mr. Fears. It took an additional layer of me saying, hey, I'm still not right. Something's not right here for me to advocate, hey, my first diagnosis, I think something's still wrong with me. So if you gentlemen can, and the whole panel, if you guys can talk about being your advocate in terms of, hey, maybe not taking the first diagnosis and say, hey, I'm good, because the doctor said I'm good. But if you know, hey, I still not feeling right, let me kind of push the issue.
Okay, we're only going to have one person answer this question. And brother, that was not a quick question. That wasn't a question. The dude on the end of the line is sitting there saying, that ain't a quick question. Just as quick an answer as we can get.
The 30-second answer is absolutely. You have to be your own personal advocate. If it doesn't smell right and feel right, then get a second opinion. It's that simple.
Next question. I'm going to get you in, bro, because this dude's going to do the right thing. It's all on him.
Well, I think this is my frat brother, so
it's all on this dude right here. It's all on Detrick.
Detrick DeBurr. What I'm taking away from here is we need to normalize wellness. How do we work with our established institutions like fraternities, our churches and what have you? What should be their message? How should they be carrying this?
That was a great job.
You want me to take it?
Yeah, I mean, we could piggyback on that one.
So the quick one is get started. It takes leadership. Someone has to lead and be the accountable owner of bringing the information together and bringing individuals together. An idea with no accountability is nothing more than a puff of air. It needs someone to own it, lead it, and bring it together. You can pass it on to someone else, church, fraternity, it doesn't matter. But you or someone else is going to have to be accountable for it and lead.
And what I want to add, once you identify that person, then have that person call me, because that's what I do. I will come in and I will show you how to use it, how to benefit from it. That's what I do.
Excellent, excellent. See, we got you in, bro. Got you in. This does not mean. We got to get to the next session. And by the way, before we ask this question, I want to make sure this housekeeping. The next session that is going to be not in the Woodrow Wilson Ballroom. We're moving it to Baltimore, which is the breakout rooms along the Carter, some of the sessions you've been in. So not Woodrow Wilson. This is Black men, the tech industry, and DEI. Where do we go from here? We're going to move over to Baltimore, not the Woodrow Wilson Ballroom. Sir?
First off, Ms. As a vet, thanks for your service.
Yes. Thank you for all the vets in the room. Thank you for your service.
So my question is, me being a vet, I get up early in the morning. I'm always trying to exercise. I'm a little out of shape right now. But I also try to get my community involved. But what I realize is that they're sort of in this rhythm, right? It's kind of hard to break out of rhythm, so you try to get folks to get up and get exercise. But it's usually like a bunch of townhouses where folks have a schedule, and it's kind of hard to get them on board. What are your recommendations to me, or what can I do differently to sort of get people onboarded?
Okay. One, if you guys have some type of community meeting, it's something that you could put on the table. But also, it only takes one or two people to get it started. So if they see you working out, or you and a friend working out through the community, people will come out and start joining. So it takes one person. I tell everybody about, your kids. Your kids are not going to work out if they don't see you work out. Your kids are not going to eat healthy if they don't see you eat healthy. So you have to be the example. And when you do that, you will watch it grow into a community.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, I've learned that if you ask people to come work out with you, that's a high bar.
Yeah.
It really is. It sounds like more than what it is, because working out has a different picture in different people's heads. And often they'll look at me and think, I ain't gonna work out the way you work out, as a bodybuilder or whatever. So I always tell people, how about just a walking group? First of all, huge health benefits for walking, heart health. It's actually more health benefits than if you lifted weights. If you walk 5,000, 10,000 steps a day, that's actually healthier for you than most quote unquote fitness routines. And most people of all ages don't mind going out for a walk.
Right.
So you start there, and then maybe after a couple of months, you integrate some calisthenics along the way. You can stop at a place where we're going to do some push-ups, some jumping jacks. Then eventually you can build more into it. But my point is just to get people started. Don't change their whole diet. Just say, listen, we're going to drink more water than we used to drink.
Right.
Think about getting people in the on-ramp and getting the first steps, and they generally find their way to doing more and better as individuals and as a community. And that's our goal. Mike?
Yeah.
Very quickly, because I know we're getting ready to end. I'm going to take 30 seconds. Everybody, please stand. No. The panel, stay seated. Everybody, please stand.
See, Michael told me what to do, I do it.
Everybody turn to your right. Everybody turn to your left. Turn and look behind you. Now be seated. What you will not be able to say when you leave this session is that this session didn't move you.
Yes. Let's hear it for Michael Currie, Yohnnie Shambourger. Great panel. Give it to him, brothers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Great
Alfred.
session.
All right.
Yeah.